Welcome, YouTube. This is Acid Root. So I'm going to review the 2008 G-Unit album, Terminate on Sight. Now, this is the album that showed up after 50 Cent's kind of somewhat lukewarm received Curtis album, but basically it had been a while since G-Unit really was around, and that's kind of the concept, like when 50 Cent and G-Unit dropped Beg for Mercy back in late 2003. They were like the next things to blow up just because 50 Cent was on a high from Get Rich or Die Trying, and he was trying to put on his crew next, which eventually manifested after that album into the 2004 albums that the G Unit members did solo and stuff like that. So really, the thing about this project is it kind of had like some kind of animosity in it just because now Tony Ayo is a part of the G Unit group, but Young Buck was kind of booted from the group. He kind of got into like some kind of arguments with 50 Cent in early 2008. So he is on about 5 songs or so out of the 16 that are on here, but he's not on every single song. That's a disappointment just because some of the songs that Young Buck did are some of the ones that are really outstanding. It would have been truly marvelous to have seen all 4 of the original G Unit members do the record like they were supposed to, but it was just kind of different. Like, I remember waiting for this record to come out. It was originally supposed to come out in 2007, and it had like a different name. It was going to be called like Lock and Load and that type stuff. And I remember there was a song that they did with Lil Kim. She was initially supposed to be on this project. You can probably find that song somewhere on YouTube, but they did a song with Lil Kim. It was pretty decent. I thought that was going to be the single. And they also talked about a record that was going to be with Eminem. And if you look on Wikipedia, it says it was going to be produced by Dr. Dre. And that would have been interesting just because Eminem, circa when he was working on Relapse, to see what he was kind of up to in 2008. Because I think apart from 50 Cent, no one really had tabs as far as what Eminem was doing in 2008. There just wasn't anybody. There was no D12. Obi Trice had left, those type things. So really, besides 50 Cent, you probably wouldn't have heard from Eminem. But for what this is a mammoth album. I definitely feel like, to me, this is probably like a hair better than Beg for Mercy. There's probably a lot of people who would say Beg for Mercy is better just because of the impact and how sheerly popular 50 Cent himself was in 2003. But I feel like the production is better on Terminate on Sight, and I also feel like it's more contemporary. And then on top of that, it just has better club records. Like, I feel like minus like Stunt 101 and maybe like one other song from Beg for Mercy, that record really did not step out that much. It just did not have the sheer amount of outgoing cuts that it need to. But I feel like Terminate on Sight has songs like Close to Me, Kitty Cat, Party Ain't Over that just actually feel like Friday night club stepping weekend bop type numbers, and they just accentuate it really well because 50 Cent doesn't typically do that. I mean, he kind of does. He's done records like In the Club and Disco Inferno and that type stuff, but getting it with his buddies along, it was just a very festive side. It's kind of more exuberant with 50 Cent than we typically see him, just because 50 Cent is really not so much of like a recreational user and that type stuff. Lloyd Banks kind of is, and Yayo kind of is, but it's just interesting kind of getting them to kind of cut loose a little bit more and seeing what they're kind of up to when they're not, so much, thug scowling and kind of gun popping and that type stuff as far as that actually kind of goes. I mean, those typical gangster rap tunes are kind of kept to a minimum this time. There's no real songs like My Buddy, or there was like another song that was like that I don't remember from Beg for Mercy, but there were some gun records on Beg for Mercy. This one is a lot more recreational, a lot more female oriented, that type stuff. There's not a hit as large as like Want to Get to Know You. And really, this whole album, there is no hit nearly as large as like Stunt 101 or Want to Get to Know You. That's one thing to know about this project. This is very much the underground album of the 2 G Unit albums, just because if you want like sheer commercial success, G Unit was just on top of the world back in late 2003, early 2004, where you would have heard them on the radio back then, but none of the hits from this project really cross over. Unfortunately, by mid 2008, it seemed like people were sick of 50 Cent and his G Unit crew on top of that. So it's just unfortunate that this record really just performed so poorly because it's, to me, probably a slight hair or two better than Beg for Mercy, just in terms of contemporariness and that type stuff. But yeah, so there were three singles from like Terminate on Sight. The first one was Like the Way She Do It, and this has like a real kind of slinky, kind of electronic, kind of chirpy kind of beat. I really like the hook on here. All four of the G Unit members are on here, and they just tear the song apart. I mean, I feel like unfortunately, the song is not that long, so I feel like Lloyd Banks's verse was kind of shorter, and really the June. I mean, the verses were just kind of short. I mean, they just didn't have enough room to really go in on it. It was just meant to be a single. It was the lead single for the album, and it's nowhere near as catchy as like Stunt 101, or maybe not. It's catchy as Stunt 101, but it just doesn't have the commercial appeal of it. And the kind of concept about it is, to me, it's just like a kind of low key, kind of afterthought kind of single. This, if you haven't heard from G Unit in several years, to say, yeah, this record exists. This is kind of one of those moments, kind of like, like when a movie sequel comes out that comes out like 8 years after like the other two, like Terminator 3. How many people realize that there was a Terminator 3 or something like that? It's the same kind of concept. It's a great song. I mean, the beat is pretty catchy. The chirps and that type of stuff in the song are just good, but it's just not as distinct. But Rider Part 2 has 50 Cent kind of on his auto tune type stuff. People like T-Pain were really popular back in 2008, so 50 Cent tries out auto tune. He does a pretty good job with it. He's pretty solid. I mean, he used to do hooks for like the Get Rich or Die Trying days and Beg for Mercy days, so he handled this hook pretty well. It's just a real sarcastic, kind of triumphantly kind of disrespectful kind of tune. I wish there would have been more records like this. I just really like the kind of militant beat on here. It just feels really militant and that type stuff. Young Buck is on this one also. They just really tore this song apart. Just real kind of short song, right to the point, but just easily kind of a hit single. This is G Unit needed way more songs like this. I'm really surprised this song got ignored because this is good. I mean, 50 Cent was kind of in a beef with Fat Joe back then, so this is one of the songs they released to disrespect him. This perfect little kind of ass clown kind of song, that type stuff. The third single the third single was Close to Me. This is kind of a club bop. I mean, all three of the songs were kind of club bops, but this one is kind of more with like women in mind and stuff. I definitely feel like this one just kind of reminded me like, hey, I'm going to see my girl in like 30 minutes or an hour or something like that. Just getting ready to pull up, hit up my girl on my phone, that type stuff, just that sort of thing. And it just works for that sort of night kind of evening kind of setting. Maybe you just got off work. I mean, it's not quite as blue collar, but I suppose it could be depending upon how you feel about it. But it just is interesting kind of have that vibe with G Unit, just because it does kind of have like, it's probably the most blue collar of all the songs, but it's club oriented. It's just the perfect evening kind of song, just getting ready to touch base and with your girl and that type of stuff. So this is good in that sense. Three great singles, liked all three of them. That just really happens to be the remark about it. There's 16 songs on here, and really the only other guest beyond Young Buck is just Movado, who's kind of like a reggaeton kind of singer type thing, but his song actually does pretty well. That song, Let It Go with Movado, kind of reminds me of a song that you would listen to in like a wake and bake session at like 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning. It just feels like just the way the beat kind of is. It's just the kind of light guitar plucks on there that don't really have too much rhythm to it, but it's still good. That's a song I would really have like breakfast to 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning. Just remind me of the perfect song. This is the way he kind of croons I'm a Gangsta in the song Movado. Just a great kind of get up and get it kind of song. And 50 Cent isn't on a lot of these. I mean, he's on several, but then there are some songs that he isn't. Like, he's not on Money Make the World Go Round, he's not on Ready or Not, and he's not on Let It Go. So there are a few songs that 50 Cent is actually not on. Just like there's a handful of songs, there are several songs that Young Buck isn't on. So you really don't get an overabundance of songs where I mean, you get enough songs where the three core G Unit members are on, but you don't get many where all four of them are kind of on, which those songs are just to be, those are definitely good moments. But yeah, just to talk about some of these that are also hits, like I'll go ahead and list the ones out of 16 I recommend. So I wound up liking 11 out of 16, which is pretty damn good. So I'll list them. So I like the way she do it. Rider Part 2, Kitty Cat, Money Make the World Go Round, I Don't Want to Talk About It, Party Ain't Over, No Days Off, Close to Me, You So Tough, Piano Man, and Let It Go. So talk about some of these. So Kitty Cat, Close to Me, and Party Ain't Over really have like excellent kind of club feels towards them, which is something I clamored for on Beg for Mercy, as they would have had more moments like Stunt 101. But all of these are great stepping out songs. Kitty Cat really has a lethal verse from Lloyd Banks. He just tore that verse apart. I mean, Lloyd Banks was kind of on fire here, and he, like, if people said that they didn't like his Rotten album or Rotten Apple album, he kind of had his fire back on this project. So Lloyd Banks definitely redeemed himself. And You So Tough is like a scathing kind of diss song. It's not really a diss towards any particular rapper, but they're really kind of getting in your face on the song, and the beat is just perfect for this kind of menacing, this the way they say You So Tough, and they're kind of taunting you kind of things. That's a great one. And I didn't like Straight Out of Southside. I felt like that was trying to be Straight Out of Compton too much, and I didn't. I mean, the Straight Out of Compton beat, I don't care for it that much, but it's just, circa 2008, there are beats that are just leagues better than how beats were back in 1988. But trying to think of a few other hits. Like I Don't Want to Talk About It's a pretty quick paced song. I definitely like that one. That can be seen as like a night out, kind of stepping out kind of song, like a swag type song, even like a club type song in some moments. That's a really good one. I like the beat on there. No Days Off kind of has like these harp plucks in the song, and it just is so gentle and so like soft, but then it's like so thuggish at the same time. It's just strange. I wasn't expecting that kind of mixture. And like Ready or Not kind of has Paranoia. This one harkens back. I mean, I didn't enjoy this song, but this, I want to talk about it. It kind of harkens back to like the Beg for Mercy days. This kind of when they were more paranoid and kind of had more ruggedness to them, kind of more records like My Buddy and Eye for an Eye and those type records. But I just wasn't in the mood quite for that. I mean, I do like Paranoia songs, but it just didn't mix with the rest of the album because most of the album is so free based and kind of exuberant about it. This was back on their old days. But to talk about the 5 songs I didn't enjoy, like straight, I already talked about why I didn't like Straight Out of South Side. Casualties of War probably had the worst beat on here, apart from Get Down. I feel like Get Down and Casualties of War just had really poor beats. Like Swiss Beats has always been a great producer for DMX and like Cassidy and those type people, but I just didn't feel the chemistry with G Unit. I mean, I know they're from the East Coast and Swiss Beats is from the East Coast, but that was truly the worst beat. It just did not sound like any sort of banger whatsoever. I mean, he's given DMX just leagues better beats. It just really was kind of dumpish. But like t.o.s, the title track, Terminate on Sight, that's another one. I I kind of felt like the beat on t.o.s was just not quite good enough. I mean, it was very meager and just kind of mellow. I just, compared to some of the stuff, it just really felt like filler on there. But yeah, there's just plenty of hits. Like some of the real immediate ones I feel like are like the most attention grabbing, just kind of in the context of like if you're not like a hardcore fan of G Unit, but you remember some 50 Cent hits from 2003, 2004 when he was huge, Disco Inferno, On Fire, Warrior, like Stunt 101, that type stuff. I would have to say In the Club. I would have to say some of the immediate ones. I definitely feel like Kitty Cat is. Definitely feel like Rider Part 2 is. Definitely feel like You So Tough is, if you're kind of feeling like being an asshole. And I kind of feel like there might be, yeah, Close to Me. Close to Me is another one that's just very kind of flirty and kind of night oriented. So those are just some immediate ones. But all the 11 ones I recommend, the beats are fabulous. They just are. They really have some excellent moments about it, and they really choose some excellent producers. They just have a number of ones. I used to really like this album when I used to listen to it. It just really had some great vibes as far as being well produced. And I'd probably say it's better well produced than Beg for Mercy. It just comes off as that. The better club joints, more contemporary, more contemporary. I mean, there's no Dr. Dre beats and there's no Eminem beats on here, so it's not quite as 2000s feeling as it probably should be. It's not quite as 2000s feeling as it probably should be, but it serves the deal. I mean, I think this is a very underappreciated album, definitely underappreciated. So I'm going to give this album an 8.75 out of 10. I really feel like 11 out of 16, that's pretty damn excellent. I would almost give it a 9. I know that disliking 5 songs, but if it would have been a 13 out of 16, it probably would have gotten a 10. But I just feel like 8.75 out of 10 basically denotes how damn well good this is. This is 50 Cent on a resurgence, and it definitely. I didn't dislike Curtis, and I don't know why so many people prefer Graduation to Curtis, because really to me, Curtis was not a flop at all. I just think people were just tired of 50 Cent for whatever reason. But this is like a shot in the arm for further 50 Cent plus his buddies along for the ride. And Lloyd Banks is reactivated. And plus, you get some extra kind of bonus content from Tony Yayo, who really only has one album out. So that's just kind of the concept as far as being able to say that. And plus, some extra Young Buck. That just kind of happens to be a thing. But one other thing I can drag this project for is it could have used some guests. I mean, they keep it strictly in-house. I mean, minus the lone Movado hook and a little bit of Young Buck. I don't know why they didn't throw the Eminem song on here if they actually made it, and because there needed to be a G Unit and Eminem song. And I'm also surprised that they didn't have the Lil Kim. I mean, it was old, and maybe they wanted like recent. They didn't want to have a song from like 20 months ago as the lone one, but the Lil Kim song was pretty decent. I mean, they should have had her on here. I think it would have contributed well, or maybe just redone it with new lyrics and stuff and hit up Lil Kim again. They should have done that. But this is kind of the concept. So the social score I'm gonna give like a 6.75 just because I feel like this is great stuff, but really it just depends. There's like for some reason G Unit just tends to get a lot of backlash. For some reason folks don't think they're as cool as like they used to be. As I mean, I think most people are gonna choose Beg for Mercy over Terminate on Sight, but I don't feel that way. It's great hits. I do feel like all 3 of the singles are great, but it's just kind of if you're one of the people that groans when you mention 50 Cent or G Unit nowadays, then it's just there is stuff on here to kind of mention, but I just don't know why that attitude would kind of be. It's just kind of for some reason 50 Cent just kind of got flattened, and I don't know why. But 6.75. There are some immediate ones like Kitty Cat, Close to Me, Rider Part 2, You So Tough, some of those moments. That just kind of happens to be a thing. So can this record be top? Yeah, no. Well, maybe. I think it's definitely pretty damn good. And in terms of the future, 50 Cent has basically said that he's done with G Unit, so much for that. But 50 Cent has just been making films and doing like television and that type stuff. So that's what he's been up to. But he does have more records I'm going to review, and I do have more work to do with G Unit. So stay tuned for that sort of stuff.